We're on. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Demi Ryan, and thank you so much for joining us. We're here today live with David Richards, and he is a parent. Thank you, David, for coming on and letting and talking to us and our audience here. He's a parent that was struggling with screen time with his 9-year-old son, and took our course a few months ago. And he has seen good transformation and huge change in his home.
Hang on 1 sec, Demi. I'm still getting us onto Facebook.
Oh, okay. It said we were on, so I started.
Wait, hold on. We're broadcasting, but we're not on Facebook yet. Hold on 1 sec.
Oh, okay.
Take one.
That was a good trial, dude. We did so good, David. That was awesome.
Good.
That was awesome.
Okay, here we go. Give me a little bit. Share in a group. Okay. Okay, we're going to be on in 5 seconds, okay?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us on our Facebook Live. I'm Dr. Demi Ryan and from Beyond Limits Academy. And we have a Solving Screen Time course coming up starting next week. So as part of letting everybody know what's going on and what this course offers, we have a special guest today. This is David Richards. He's a father and also an educator. Oh, now we're streaming to Facebook. Okay, start again. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Demi Ryan from Beyond Limits Academy. And thank you for joining us. We have a special guest this morning. We have David Richards, who's an educator, and also in his spare time, he's a father. And he's a father who was struggling with screen time and then joined one of our Beyond Limits Academy courses. And he's seen change in his home and the way that he and his wife approach screen time and the effects that it's having on their family and his son. And he is on this morning to talk to us about how that happened and what he got from the course, and giving parents information about our course that we do have starting next week on July 27th. So David, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And maybe if you would want to start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your endeavors and who you are as a person and a dad, because, you know, we're both. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I love how you said I'm an educator and in my spare time I'm a father. I would actually say I'm a dad, and in my spare time in COVID, I'm trying to get some work done.
And really now it's all at the same time. It's an interesting experiment.
All at the same time. And I'm sure the lovely children will probably throw something at me or jump in at any moment, because that's what we're doing now in COVID. But yeah, so I am David Richards, and I am an educator. I've been a teacher, a principal, and a school founder for the last 20 years. And so I'm really passionate about screen time. I opened charter schools in the Bay Area with Summit Public Schools, which is a charter network across the Bay Area that's been around for a long time, nationally ranked charter schools. And we actually were one of the, early in 2010, one of the first schools to do one-to-one learning and use Khan Academy, so very tech-heavy high school.
Great.
And I really thought that I knew exactly how to deal with technology and screens and kids. Right?
Isn't it so interesting how our professional lives and our parenting lives don't always match?
It doesn't match.
No,
so
I know
anyway, so when I found out about Beyond Limits, we were really struggling with my son, who's now 9, he'll be 10 in November.
Okay.
And it was the kind of thing where we knew, so my daughter almost 7, my son's almost 10, and we knew that they were very different. Like my son was always more into the screens than my daughter. And we knew that from like really early age. And you gotta love grandparents, but you know, their generation doesn't care about the screens as much, or sugar, you know, they have other things they care about. But so when our son was like a year old, my mother-in-law put him on Sesame Street or something, super innocuous, you know, no big deal.
Yep.
And the kid was hooked. Like he's like, give me a screen, give me a screen, give me a screen. And so we kind of went through this journey from that point forward of like, we knew that we were gonna have trouble with the screens. And then you talk about the world we live in and the ubiquity of technology. And so the low moments were when he was 4 years old, some kind of deviant behavior, like where my daughter would listen to lullabies with my phone, you know, at night and plugged in her room, but like not looking at the phone, and he would sneak in and try and play. Like we didn't put any games. We're very so one of the things I learned from your course is that we were very negative about technology. I was about to say we were very anti-technology, which we are. So I had to own that, like, we have a lot of our own, blind spots around the way we talk about technology. And one of the key things that we took away from your course is that you have to check your own issues.
Yeah.
Talking about technology is the way. Basically, we realize that we're massive hypocrites because we're like, technology is terrible. Technology kills your brain. Technology is awful. And then
then
every
we're on
5
our
seconds, we're
phones.
like, and so
But
it really
it
helped
makes
us.
sense, right? And when you have a kid that's so glued to the screen, it's so scary as a parent. And I see that all over. Different kids react so differently to that screen, right? And as a parent, it's terrifying to see your child like a moth to flame on this screen. So even if in general, in your professional life, you're pro technology, you see the benefits, right? Then when you get home and you watch your son sneak into your daughter's room, it's just so natural to get scared. And then our negativity is part of our response to that fear, right? And then that is what sets us up for, it can be a root of screen time conflict. Yeah.
And it's just a vicious cycle. And I would say we definitely did the thing. We're really into conscious parenting with Dr. Shafali, and she talks about how like your thoughts become your reality. And so we definitely did that thing where we were so mired in fear.
Yeah.
And we manifested this happening. And that, like, we were like, oh my God, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen. And then like, then you look for the evidence to show that's gonna happen. And it's like, oh, he went for real evidence. Like, oh my God, he's gonna become a criminal now. He's stealing. And then we just went crazy. But basically he did that. And then we dealt with that. And Annie, we called Annie to get a bunch of coaching, who was on your team. And she helped us through that. And then when he was 6, I think, or 7, my wife went out of town. Of course, it happened on my watch. And he snuck out, because I don't wake up in the middle of the night, and snuck out again to my daughter's room, got the phone, and then I woke up at like 7 o'clock to get him out of bed, take him to school, and he was like really tired, like
you're like, what is going on?
But I looked at the screen time, because I figured that out in my limited technology ability. I realized I could see screen usage, and I realized
they figured out much faster than we do, huh?
He was on, we wouldn't let him do any kind of violent video game or anything, but I let him do soccer and basketball, like a NBA, like free, NBA Live, and like some goal soccer game. And we would let him do like 10 minutes a week or whatever. It was like very minimal. And he actually went and played NBA Live in the soccer game for 5 hours and 42 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, the hours of 12 a.m. and 5 a.m.
And you remember the exact amount of time, because that must have been so terrifying to check that screen time. 5 hours and 42 minutes.
We're like going down the fear path of like, what's going to happen when our kid's a teenager, because, and all this stuff. And it was around that time that we found Beyond Limits. And I'm trying to remember if there was another like low. Oh, and then just the other thing that was happening in between that 4 to 7 age is that he would sneak out and watch TV. So it was whatever screen he had access to where the deviant behavior would come. So we wouldn't let him use the phone, and then he would sneak out and watch TV. So I passworded everything. So then I felt like I was the person in my own home.
Right, exactly. And this is the hard part is, I mean, especially now in COVID, imagine if this was happening now in your home, right? It's like the screens are unavoidable. And for these kids that have so much tendency to get glued and hooked, it's like, what do? We can't just take it away. And I think that's like the going paradigm is you just limit it, take it away, limit access, and everything will be fine. But it's not. It's that ship has sailed, so to speak, right? Yeah.
Well, and the other thing I love about your all's philosophy is I remember as a kid that grew up in the 80s, we had some really cool progressive hippie friends, lived across the street in our neighborhood, and their parents were like, no TV.
Right.
You know what these kids would do? When I was
out and watch TV.
They would sneak down to the kid's house that was the recent Chinese immigrants, where the parents weren't paying attention to what people are watching on TV. And we would watch R-rated sex, violence, shooting, killing, and they would be they wouldn't get off the TV.
Yep.
So I was like, it's kind of like you can't beat them, join them
like
type
that.
thing.
Yep.
You're not going to ignore, and this is what we used to teach our parents when I worked in the high schools. Like, you're not just going to be able to take all of it away. So you got to learn how to teach it to them responsibly, which is what I love.
You have to learn to teach. You have to teach them how to interact with them, these devices. But the problem is, as parents, we're still learning that. So we don't have that built-in sense of what to do, and you get that fear driven by seeing how much your kid wants it. You want to just take it away. It's not possible. There's the place we all get stuck and overwhelmed.
Yes. So I want to tell the good part of the story, because
I
built up the drama here, and the kid is like stealing our phones and our keys. No. And then
overnight, 5 minutes, 42 seconds, 5 hours.
Right. So I would say it was about 6 months, a year later. He's like 8 years old now, and we're kind of playing around with like video game limits. So now we're letting him do I think it was 40 minutes on my phone again, no Xbox, no, just a little bit of video games here or there. And we were in a lot of fear. And then when we took your course, we realized that we were massive hypocrites. B, we weren't actually talking to our kid like really honestly. C, we were bringing in so much negativity about the technology that he felt a lot of shame and judgment. Like he was the bad kid because the other 3 people in the house didn't care about video games and he was obsessed with them.
Right.
I just dropped a lot right there. So
yeah. And those are those mindset shifts that we teach, right? And we don't realize it as parents that a lot of our screen time conflict, it feels like it's coming from the kid, and in a sense it is. They're glued to their devices. We don't know what to do, but it's the way that we approach it that either, waters those seeds of conflict and disconnection, right? Because when we're busy judging and saying it's bad, what happens is we lose our kid. They like it. And so what they hear from us is, dad or mom is just trying to take away what I love. And I must be a piece of, beep, 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 because I like it and no one else seems to like it. And so there gets all this confusion. It's the energy. It's this confusion, this disconnection. And what's missing is the opportunity for training your child, for teaching your kid this skill set, right? Because you can't do that when you're so disconnected.
Yeah, and we found that
So what happened next, David? What happened?
Well, so what happened next was we started trying to figure out, like, as he got older, then it was like, okay, now there's YouTube. It was like all the YouTube crazy. And then he was watching.
The Pandora's box,
I remember Annie telling me that we make fun of kids for watching other kids play video games. And she's like, do you watch basketball? And I was like, yeah. She's like, so what's the difference? I'm like, you're so right about that. So we were like, we told him he couldn't watch YouTube because he would watch violent video games. He'd watch, the YouTubers that are like making tons of money playing video games all day. He would watch these 14-year-old kids play, Grand Theft Auto. And we're like, what are you doing? Like, no. And so then we said,
waste of time.
Yeah. And then one of my friends has a really good philosophy around, he's a tech guy, and with his kids, it's like, they can't, he wants to minimize consumption. So if they're consuming technology versus creating something or learning something, so that's another framework that's been helpful. But anyway, so what happened next? So basically we started doing the things that you guys had told us, that you taught us, which is to start having the conversations. So for example, I started saying, like, I'm kind of addicted to Facebook. And then I would say, but here's the thing, like, I'm building this education movement. This is another project I have around reforming schools and getting parents, like, building an actual movement. And so I have a Facebook group now. And so in the past, I would have just been like, I can use the phone, I'm an adult. But now I say, hey, I show him, like, this is my job now.
Right.
And if I can just respond to like 10 people in the next 5 minutes, then I won't have to pick up my computer from 9 to 10 tonight. And then I talked to him about, like, I'm watching my energy. And if I start doing kind of a mindless numbing, then I will tell you that I need to put it in a box. Like, we're going to put it in a box. Now, if I'm doing it in flow and I'm like, really, like, it's efficient and it feels good and I'm not disconnected from you guys, then it's cool. And, and that, so we can have those conversations around, like, this is something that we're learning and that we're really bad at too. And they'll be like, Daddy's addicted. And I'll be like, yeah, I am. Just like the caffeine.
Just like we all are.
It becomes a way to numb. And then it's an opportunity to say, why are you doing this? Because where's the energy? Are you trying to numb, or are you just enjoying your time with the screen?
And there's just so much there, right? It's like when we open up about our own journey and struggles, we think that's going to make our kid, not hear our message about getting off screens, but it actually happened the reverse, right? It's like, then they see that they're human, that we're human, that we're all in this together, that we're all struggling to learn to use technology. And what we can do, and what you're doing, is sharing your wisdom that you're accumulating as you figure out how to engage with your screen. And what a powerful message and a powerful connection to your child to share wisdom as you're gaining it, right? When you're in the process of it, you're showing him that process and that journey of learning to engage wisely with screens. Lovely. And so you see the difference with him when you take that approach.
Yeah, we do. And the other thing that happened is he really wanted to get an Xbox. And we were like, no.
No way.
But then after taking your course, we're like, wait a minute. he's finding all these things. He's finding the YouTube, he's
Yeah.
finding using the phone, he's, you know, he wants to go to his friend's house where they have Xboxes. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're that family where they go to their friend's house for 6 hours and there's no limits. And
Right.
we're actually creating this, you know, he wants to do it
They
because we're
binge
taking
on
it
the
away.
Xbox. Yeah.
Yeah, so we decided to let him get an Xbox, which was a huge deal for my wife because she was like, this is literally going to change our whole entire household. But what we did
Yeah.
is we actually made him earn it.
Yeah.
And it took him 5 months. And it was a really painful 5 months because he wanted it, you know, the immediate gratification that we have in our society now. He wanted it right away.
Yep.
Like it's $100 and whatever, $200, $220. Like we're going to pay for, we'll give you $50. So how are you going to get $170?
Yeah.
So then he earned it.
Nice.
It took him 5 months, and it was really painful because he really felt like we weren't, you know, he just wanted us to buy it from like his friends. And it's that opportunity to be like, well, we want to teach you here that things don't just show up magically. You have to actually earn it. You know, you have to.
And that taking on a higher level of tech use is a responsibility that you have to show us that you're ready for, right?
Yes.
It's like, this is where we go to this driver's ed metaphor. It's like, are you ready for a learner's permit? Well, you have to study. You have to take a test. It doesn't just come because these devices are, you know, high risk. They're high stakes. They're not, you know, and especially for a kid like him, it's not like you're just, you know, handing him a toy. You're handing him something that could be a risk factor for him. So communicating to our kids that this is not just a fun thing, this is a responsibility. The way that you earn it is maybe making money, maybe showing us, you know, how to use and how to log off and how to balance it with other things in your life, right? So that there's really kind of a process around gaining that freedom instead of just being handed it.
Yes, and thank you for reminding me that actually that based on your course, we did the whole you have to earn the money thing, which is like, that's a small piece, but the bigger piece was we said, you need to show us that you're ready, just like driving, just like whatever. And it was so interesting because he's almost 10 and there's like we're seeing a pretty, you know, dramatic shift in developmentally from like to the double digit. We've heard this from our friends, he's like moving to the tweens, you know? And so he started to kind of mature. And we could say like, oh, you know, you have 10 minutes or 20 minutes of your soccer game. And when we tell you to turn it off, you throw a fit.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things we learned through Beyond Limits, we literally use the language like, is that we have to teach you how to learn how to stop. And because when you're 16, and we talk about my wife's brother, who when he was in high school would spend, you know, the whole entire Friday night to Monday morning on his video game. Now he's a very successful computer science. You know, he's a successful guy, but like, I don't want to throw him under the bus. But he would spend the whole weekend doing that. And we're like, this is what's going to happen to you. And we want you to have the tools now that you're 9 and you're getting so mature to actually be really aware of like how to stop. How does it make you feel? What's the energy? Are you using this to numb? Are you using this because it's fun? Like all those conversations were really, really critical to that 5-month period. And I think that why I say it's painful is because he was annoyed at us because we made him go through that. But that's okay. That's parenting.
But that's okay. That's parenting, and that's the learning process, right? Learning isn't comfortable a lot of the time. You know, we're not comfortable when we're learning and growing, and everything you're describing is the skill set that we're trying to get kids to gain awareness, and they can. And I think there's a myth in our culture that like these young kids can't do this, so you have to wait. No, we don't want to wait till that kid is 16 to figure it out, because then you're breaking bad habits versus establishing them young, and they really can do it. They can log off on their own if somebody shows them how, sits down with them and mentors them through the process. And what a lovely process for him to see that he can do it. And then he can up his freedom and up his, up the game. Right now he's out of learning to drive in the parking lot. He's got his Xbox and he's going to have to take on some harder things, because it's going to be harder to turn off the Xbox than it was to turn off, soccer. Right?
Yes.
So
he has the Xbox. Yeah. He got the Xbox ironically in like February. So we're like, oh, this is great. We're perfect. But now with an Xbox. Okay, time to learn. But yeah, he got the Xbox, and we were pretty strict. I think we gave him like 45 minutes a week, and which we're learning from our friends that was pretty strict, and especially during COVID. So we kind of started to be a little more. One of the things we learned too is like we're very rigid about the times, like about because we just don't like technology, right? So we're constantly saying,
and there's
like,
that fear that comes
yes,
in. Yeah.
yes.
Time's up,
So
time's up. Got to be now. Got to be now.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So what we're learning is that, you know, he used to throw a massive fit every time we told him to turn it off. And now we're just working on, you know, he explained to us, well, sometimes you give me, and so we're up to about 2 hours a day, about an hour in the morning and about an hour and a half to the afternoon. Again, this is COVID. I think in a normal world, we'd probably be doing like half an hour after school.
I think I think everyone is experiencing a little bit more screen time. And I always say that doesn't need to be a disaster, but it does need to be used as a chance to practice. And if it's not used as a chance to practice a skill set, it can run the risk of becoming more, prone to addiction, right? But if you're using it with these timers and this, process around helping him learn to unhook himself, so that it's not you always having to be the one, enforcing it. And that's what we want. We want these kids to be able to independently self-regulate. And they can with the right training.
I totally agree. I was gonna say, just to be clear, we're not at that point yet where he can stop on his own. But I mean, he's not even 10. But we are at the point where he's brought awareness. We've brought awareness. He's brought awareness. So he will now say
the process.
We'll tell him like it's 9 o'clock or whatever. We do 9 o'clock in the morning and usually like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And it's an hour to an hour and a half. And we'll be like, okay, it's 9, you got to turn off at 10. And then at like 9:55, we'll be like, what's going on? He's like, well, I have to finish a match. So he explained to us so we did buy the headphones. We allow him to play with other people. And we did the whole conversation about like, who are you playing with? Who are they? How old are they? All that. And I know for his age group, that's less, he's not doing the social media thing. I know that's another part of your course, but for us, it's just a game thing. But he is getting social interaction, and we get to hear him because it's in the living room. It's really funny, but it's like they're negotiating,
the conversations,
right? Yeah, it's socialization, and it is a good skill they're building without being in school. But basically, he explained to us, like, when I'm in a group and I'm playing, and then I just turn it off, like that's not good.
It lets down the team, right?
Yeah. So we are able to have that conversation. So now he'll say it's 9:55. We'll check with him, and he'll say this is best case scenario. Sometimes, depending on his mood, he might get mad at us, but I would say more than 50% of the time now he'll say, I just want to finish the match it's 5 to 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, we're gonna expect you to turn it off by 10:15 the latest, and then he does it, and he's done.
Wow.
That's like 50% of the time. The other 50%.
Yeah, but 50%. 50% for, I mean, when I talk to parents about training, we're taking the long view, right? You're taking a 6-year-old and you're imagining how you want them to be at 16, because this is a big process just with brain development. Kids can't do it all right away, right? But they can do elements of it. And for a 10-year-old to be at 50%, period, with those group games, which are so hooking, so compelling, and have that social element that make it hard to log off. And then you've got a kid who was, sneaking screen time at age 6. So you have somebody who really has the potential. He's logging off 50% at age 10. That's pretty good, Yeah. We're on the right track there. And the conflict in your home sounds like it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotten better. And I would say, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think one of the key points is we had a moment the other day where so a couple things happened. Number one, we had for a while, when COVID first hit, we had him on for 3 times a day. And it was getting to be like ridiculous, because it's like literally when I drink my coffee and I can just think about my 1 o'clock tea. I'm like, it's 1 o'clock yet. I'm sure, that's what he was doing. It was like, okay, my video game's at 9, then it's 1, and then it's 7 or whatever. And he was doing it 3 times a day.
Too obsessed.
Yes, and we went to visit Annie in San Leandro, and we were sharing with her that he stopped reading because his eyes were bothering him. And his neck was bothering him. So he didn't want to ride his bike. And she's like, ding, 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 ding. That's because of the video games. And I was resistant. I'm like, whatever. Like, the ladies are being all crazy and fear-based again. Right. And he's only doing like 3 hours a day. Like, come on, people. Like, some kids are on 10 hours, and I was like, whatever. And then Annie and my wife sat me down and told me that I was wrong. I was like, okay, great. Thank you. That's your job. And they're like, well, why don't we see what the doctor says? So my wife gave a little whisper to the doctor and said, hey, I think there's some issues because of the video game. So can you, if that's the case, please say that very clearly to my son, so it's not coming from me. Because there's always that, like, you don't like video games, you don't like technology. Right. And the doctor was like, do you look away when you play? And he's like, no. It's like, do you blink? Do you take a break? Do you move your neck? Right. He's like, no. So we took a time period away, took it down 3 hours at 2. And he was really angry about that. But that was like 3 weeks ago. but then we just kept saying it's health and safety.
Yep.
Like you don't want to ride your bike, you don't want to read. So guess what?
Right.
We took that away. He now knows he has to blink every 15 minutes.
Yes.
And we remind him. And he knows he needs to get up and walk around. It's so crazy, right? But guess what? He started reading again. This kid loves reading.
Oh,
He reads like 7th and 8th
good.
grade books. Even though
So
he's 9.
good.
And he
So
started getting
good.
up in the morning and reading again. And we're like, yes, yes, yes.
And this is what we want. This stuff is so hooking for some kids, for all of us, but for some kids. And then they're not aware of the effect it's having on them. And this is one of the skills we need them to learn. But he's 10. He's not going to be able to fully identify the impacts that it's having. And that's still the job of the adults around him, right? I mean, we liken it to giving a kid something that they're allergic to and break out in rash, some food, right? If you discover your kid's allergic to something, even if they beg, borrow, and steal to get it, you don't give it to them. You're not going to, it's a safe. And when we notice tech impacting our kids in that way, this happened in my home with a certain show that my daughter was watching. For whatever reason, she got so obsessed with it that it was distracting all day. She couldn't think of anything else. It was affecting her mood. You know, sorry, that's the allergy metaphor, right?
Yes.
It's hurting her. She can't see that, but you did, I did, and that has to be our job, right? Yeah. So we're teaching them to identify it. As they learn that skill, we're going to have to do that for them until they're a bit older. So
and then the other thing that happened that I think is really important to share is we moved our house in the middle of COVID because we were renting out a house, and then the person left and we're like, we just got to move in. So it was really insane. And so we've been here for 3 weeks today, and the first 2 weeks were really, really hard because we're all moving and it's transition. Yeah. But, there was like some real issues around the video games, and it was actually a root issue that wasn't related to the video game. So that's the other thing we've learned is that we immediately jumped to it's because of the video games, and he gets really angry at us because he's like, maybe it's because we moved our whole entire house and I didn't get to say bye to my friends, and I'm not going back to school, and I have no play dates, and soccer is taken away and baseball is taken away and football and so, and I'm like, oh yeah, good point. Oh, right. It's not just the video games that's creating this problem. Yeah. But what we had to do, I was gonna say what we had to do is it was really, really bad for like 2 weeks, like really not fun in the house, like a lot of conflict. And what I noticed is that he was using the video game to numb. Yeah. So I think what's really important is understanding that all of these tools are tools, and without getting to the root of the issue, the tools don't work. That's like, if you have someone who's drunk and depressed driving the car, it doesn't matter if they know how to drive the car. Exactly. You know? Exactly. And you've now, I'm so grateful for the way you're speaking about this. You've hit on every one of our skills, right? Another one of these skills is about learning how to see when you're using technology for numbing, because our screen time across the board has become I think Americans' favorite way of numbing at this point. It's probably, replaced whatever we used to do. So we're all numbing out by it. And it is such a dangerous pattern to get into. So it can happen on the kid's side. It can happen on the parent side, where we're not dealing with certain things, because whenever we feel uncomfortable, we're going right to our phones. Yep. So what do we teach? How do we get to the root of that problem and teach our kids and ourselves to face the feelings that we're feeling, and use our tech, as you keep saying, when it's enjoyable, when it's fun, when it's lighthearted, when it's for what the purpose, entertainment, or creating movements, or, creating music and art. And, this is what the technology can be beautiful for. Yes. Even these games can be wonderful for kids to connect, but it's about how it's being used and whether it is interfering with their ability to cope with or deal with or face something deeper. And that is one of the things that we as parents have to stay on top of for protecting our kids, but then also teaching them to identify those patterns themselves, so that when we lose our control over them, which happens quick, by the time they're 14, 15, 16, they're out there doing this stuff on their own. And we want them to be aware and have these tools at their disposal. Yeah. So, so what happened in this one story is that, we took away the 1 o'clock, and that was like, he was really upset about that and my friend shared, the kids right now, so many things are being taken away from them. Yeah. Because like I said, the sports, the school, friends, the socializing, school, their whole life, right? For all of us, right? And so he was really upset about that for a while. But then what we noticed is similar to him reading in the morning again, is that now that the block between is not 10 to 1, but 10 to 4. And we're really firm on the 4. We're like, no. You cannot start till 4. Yeah. And he now wants to like play and do stuff. There you go. And he's constantly trying to be like, let me Zoom chat my friend, and let me listen to YouTube on your phone. And I'm like, no, there's no screens between 10 and 4. Yeah. We're not perfect. Like, now I'm saying this out loud. I'm like, oh, we do them. But like we try and minimize the 10 to 4 as much as possible. On our best days, it's like 0. And on other days, he listens to YouTube, radio. And I tell him to turn my phone upside down. Like, no screen time, but you can listen. But at one moment when he was really having a hard time, I realized that I had to sit down with him and get to the root.
Yeah.
We sat in front of the TV for 45 minutes.
Wow.
While my daughter was watching her show, because she watches her little shows when he's on the video games. And I was just like, I'm not going to turn on the video game until you are connecting with me in a very like deep presence.
Yeah.
And he was rolling his eyes and he was really angry for like 40 minutes. And I just remembered as a high school teacher that if I had a kid that was talking to me that way, rolling his eyes at me and doing all that other stuff, I wouldn't have accepted it for 20 seconds, but with my own kid, I let him do it every day, right? So I was like, stop being the dad and just neutrally pretend like this guy is one of your 15-year-olds.
One of your students, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it's Oakland, they're 15, you gotta be like really firm. And I just was like, yeah, okay, looks like, oh, you're getting close on the body language, but you're still rolling your eyes. Okay, you're not sitting up straight. Okay, I'm gonna sit here, I got all day. And I had like no negative energy, I was just calm about it. And then about like minute 39, he started to share like,
what's really going on.
And then it all came out. And then I explained to him, I'm like, so this is what I've been talking about with my Facebook usage. When I'm in a bad space and I'm not connecting with myself and my emotions, then I just do.
It becomes a problem. It's not wise, right? It's not wise tech use in that moment. Yep.
And then everything changed. So then he played the game, he was fine. And then the next day he like didn't ask for screens. He did his normal screen time. So it's, all the stuff you guys are teaching is amazing. That's all I have to say. And I don't even know all your language like we talked about before, but apparently I'm using all the skills. So
doesn't matter. You've hit on all the major topics, all the major skills, how you're using the technology, the time to get and keep him motivated to learn. And then when you're noticing those patterns, you're on top of it to show him the patterns. Then he's able to see it, right? They have to gain awareness, and it starts with our awareness, and we can't be aware if we don't know what to look for.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm trying to do here, right? Is give parents a roadmap, a comprehensive plan. How do you set up screen time, and what do you look for as the problem signs? And then how do you address those, not just by taking it away or being judgmental or angry about it or scared, but actually with a skill set that you know what you're doing, right? That's what can reduce your fear. Is if you walk into that conversation, you know what you're trying to get, you're not reactive and scared, you know where you're headed. And then you can have these deep moments that are truly, mentoring and teaching him about the world of how to interface with these screens in a way that's healthy. Yeah. Oh my God, David, I'm so happy. Because I remember when you first came and we were like, all right, let's roll up the sleeves. We got to do this,
Absolutely. So I really think the number one piece of advice I would share through the process that I got from using your program is like, observe yourself.
Yeah.
Because we don't realize how incredibly ubiquitous technology is. I don't think we're conscious of it until we really start paying attention. And I feel like I'm like a low tech, I'm not really interested in tech and all that. And I'm like, no, but I still spend. Too, right? Then I get the weekly screen report on my phone. I'm like, what? My average was 6 hours. I'm like, well, it's probably just phone calls. I'm like, no. Oh. Yeah. So I just think we don't realize how, I mean, it's basic psychology. Like what you're modeling is what you value.
And it can be daunting for parents, I think, to start to think that way of, oh my God, is it me? But I always say to them too, like, wait a minute, that's empowering, because if it's us, that's something we can focus on and change. And small changes in our approach and what we're aware of in terms of tech use and our patterns and our kids' patterns and the skills that they need, these small changes go a really long way. So it's not to be scary that, oh God, it's me. No, it's like, oh yes, it's me. Yes. Then I can address it, because if it's my kid, that's a lot harder to address, right? When it's us as a parent, we can make movement on that. So, oh, David, thank you so much for coming on and doing this.
I'm really happy.
Happy to hear all this.
Yeah, it helped me to kind of like clarify it all. And then I will share this on the Heart of the Matter Facebook page, which is my education Facebook group. And there's a lot of parents on there that'll be interested to hear about this
your own
program.
Journey with it. Yeah.
So I'll share this video.
We'll send them our way. We've got our course. Great.
Cool.
And we'll share it all over too. We've got a course coming next week, starting Monday. And what I'm reminding parents is screen time. I mean, fall school looks like for most of us, it's going to be at least partially remote. And for many of us, it'll be all remote. And if there's a time to get our screen time plan in place and to make these shifts,
Yes.
we want to do it now in the summer when we're still, have some aren't on all the time, right? I mean, and they will be on even more once the fall starts. So, for anyone from your audience or my audience that's interested, there's still spots in the class. Join in for next week. That we will be offering the class again, but not till the fall. Well, the fall is, a little heartbeat away. So we're almost approaching fall. Get in there for the last summer part of it. So David, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Send your folks our way, Beyond Limits Academy. We'll send them your way as well. It's just great to collaborate with like-minded folks. So thank you so much.
All right.